Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Healthy Mind and Body Radio Show with Michael Harris, PhD. We are committed to helping you create a type of life that is worth living. Our guests are authors, speakers, healers, and industry experts who are living their dream. Join us each Monday and Thursday at 1 p.m. and start living your dream.
Good Thursday afternoon and welcome to Healthy Mind and Body Radio. I'm Michael Harris, and today we're going to be talking about hypnotic phenomena disguised as illness or dis-ease. And, you know, people have heard about hypnotic phenomena for a while, and, some have not. Hypnotic phenomena is one of those things that when they were studying it, when the founders of NLP, Richard Bandler and John Grinder, they couldn't find one single hypnotic phenomena that couldn't be reproduced in a conscious state. So this is something that our brain does easily without effort. It does it all the time. It's just whether or not that you're noticing that we're doing it. And I thought I'd give you an example. I did it on the promo. Imagine for a moment you're sitting at home. You're all by yourself. You're watching this scary, scary movie that's making, the hair stand on your back of your head, and suddenly you hear footsteps, or what sounds like footsteps. Okay? Since your mind doesn't have a picture, it doesn't have anything to respond to, it starts looking for reasons, that there's footsteps. Maybe there's a person out there, or if you see a shape in the window. I mean, you could very easily just get yourself all wound up, and there's nobody there. Maybe it's just the wind blowing, or a tree branch bumping against the window shutters, or the leaves dragging across the screen. And people freak themselves out just for something to do, because their brain doesn't have a picture or doesn't have a reason of why it's hearing the sound that it's hearing. Now, the hypnotic phenomena that I'm going to be talking about today are Ericksonian phenomena. So if they differ from your knowledge of clinical hypnotic phenomena, oops, sorry about that, but these are the ones that I'm familiar with. And these are the ones that I use. And what's really interesting about this is when I have somebody come into the office and they've got some type of thing, they've got some type of something going on. One of the things that I'm looking for is what type of hypnotic phenomena is happening automatically in their life. And what's real interesting is that the solution is often the opposite of whatever it is they're doing. And I'll give you another example. Have you ever seen a grown man or a grown woman pout? They hold their breath, they stamp their feet, they won't talk to you because they're pouting. Okay? That is a very age-regressed pattern. Okay? So the solution to that, one of the solutions is ignore them like you would a petulant toddler who is trying to get their way because they don't want to go to bed and they want a cookie. You could ignore them, but sometimes that doesn't work all that well. One of the things that you might consider is asking that person if they would like to approach this strategy that they have for pouting and grow it up. I find it really interesting that the things that we learn, particularly the things that we learn when we are children, we continue to use them over and over and over again until the strategy stops working. And unfortunately, pouting is one of the most successful strategies that people have, and they very seldom update it. So anyway, we're gonna kind of dive into these hypnotic phenomena, and the goal today is to kind of tickle your little gray cells and get you thinking about, is this really an illness, or is this, or someone has manifested a disease? Is it real? I mean, there's a whole bunch of diseases, and there's a whole bunch of illnesses that have no cause. They have no cure. And that to me means that it's not, physiological. It's not biological. It's something that the brain is attempting to get your attention that something's wrong. And some of these might be a stretch for you to jump in on, but, just roll with it. So let's start with the hypnotic phenomena, hypnotic dreaming and daydreaming. Now, we use this all the time inside of a therapeutic situation in which you teach the person to dream hypnotically and remember what they're doing, or daydream hypnotically what they're doing. Well, what if you have somebody who they are dreaming and they are interpreting those dreams as real and factual, and it's just that their brain is practicing. Everybody has worked with somebody who they're just not present. They're just not here. And you may have somebody who is daydreaming. They're taking a little vacation while they're supposed to be working. Now, that doesn't necessarily imply illness or disease, but it could. What about narcolepsy? There are documented cases of people who are narcoleptic. How do you know that person who is narcoleptic, or somebody they get in the car and they immediately fall asleep? Okay. How do you know that they haven't unconsciously, or someone installed a trigger in which at the moment that their backside hits that chair, they go right to sleep? And it's just one of those things that isn't that interesting? Automatic writing and automatic drawing. This also could be construed as if you got somebody that constantly doodles or constantly is drawing, or whenever their hands are not busy or occupied, that they have a pen and they're doing something. It's not necessarily a bad thing unless that activity is taking over their life in a way that it's no longer enhancing their life or enhancing the lives of people around them. Okay. And then we're going to start getting into interesting stuff like hypnotic anesthesia and hypnotic analgesia. Okay. And I pulled them up on a website so that I could read you the exact definition. Okay. The reason for hypnotic anesthesia originally was for pain management, to control pain and to make sure that the person who is having surgery is absolutely still. It was originally invented in the 1800s to reduce the need for ether because, too much ether, you go to sleep and you don't wake up. But you have cases in which that people are completely insensitive to pain. They literally can't feel anything. Well, what if you have someone who has a hypnotic suggestion, and we'll get to post-hypnotic suggestions in a second, where they literally don't feel their emotion, or they literally can't feel when somebody is hugging them, or they don't feel love. This could be one of those things where you're talking to your partner, or you're showing your partner, or you're demonstrating to your partner that you love them. They have this post-hypnotic suggestion that allows them to ignore it. It's just one of those little interesting things. Now, there's also a hypnotic phenomenon called hypnoalgesia. Okay, and if you think about an analgesic like ibuprofen or aspirin or something that is going to reduce pain, used properly, hypnotic analgesia is great for pain management. There are people out there that are having chemo, or they have back injury, or they've got something, or they have had an amputation, and they've got pain, and they want to do something other than take medication. So this actually has a good use. But if you are unaware of this, and you can't feel your body, or you can't feel a limb, or you have numbness or a lack of feeling in a leg, and you can test it. You can use a probe, or they can do an MRI, and everything's working. They just don't have a reason for what's going on. It may be one of those things in which the that you have a post-hypnotic suggestion in place that is causing this phenomena. And the downside of this is if you get somebody who they can't feel a limb or they can't feel a body part or something like that, they stop using it, okay? And then the physical manifestation becomes true of the mental manifestation. If you can't feel their arm, they stop using it. They stop working that arm. And pretty soon it shrivels up and does exactly what their picture in their head does. Now, there's another one in there. There's another hypnotic phenomena that I find absolutely fascinating, and it's called hyperesthesia. And what this means is that this is an abnormal increase in sensitivity to a stimuli, to a sense, to a specific sense. Now, we have 5 different senses, okay? So it's probably no big stretch of the imagination that somebody with fibromyalgia might have hyperesthesia in the form of a post-hypnotic suggestion in which it physically hurts for you to touch their skin, or it would be impossible for them to have massage, or for you to touch them in any way. Well, what if you had this hyperesthesia in one of your other senses? And I met people who have a sensitivity. They can't watch action movies, or they can't watch bloody movies, or you've got somebody who the particular sound, a particular type of music causes a real, abnormal reaction where they have to get up. They absolutely have to leave when they hear a certain type of music. This could be a imposed or self-imposed hyperesthesia where they are abnormally sensitive to this particular sense. Okay, and it would work in the gustatorial, taste, or in the olfactory, where you are particularly hypersensitive to specific smells. I mean, we have with taste and smell, we have almost a 40% cortical overlap into our neurology. So smells, in particularly good smells or bad smells, have a mechanism that affects our physiology in a way where you can smell somebody's perfume and it can teleport you back to a specific time and space. Okay? The next hypnotic phenomena that I want to talk about is really kind of interesting to me, although it might be kind of a stretch in terms of how that will affect you in illness or disease, is time distortion. Time distortion, where you're expanding and contracting time. And we do it all the time. If you've ever been to a lecture or you've ever been sitting in a classroom and you're looking at the clock and then you tie your shoes and the teacher talks for a couple more minutes, blah, 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 and you look up at the clock and 5 whole seconds have gone by. And conversely, you're off doing something. You're at Disneyland. You're having fun. You're with your favorite people, and you look at your watch or you look at your phone to see the clock, and 3 or 4 hours have gone by, and you have no clue how fast time works. One of the things that's really interesting is the way that we distort time is random, and you can actually teach yourself to distort time in a positive way. You can actually contract the amount of time that you are having a bad time, and you can actually expand the amount of time that you are enjoying yourself. It's called, and there's also another process in NLP, which is called in time and through time. I mean, people who are in time, they are in the moment. They are in the middle of this experience that they are having. And there's no beginning, and there's no middle, and there's no end. They are just there. They are being that experience, which is awesome, particularly, if there's no such thing as, going to work or time schedules or traffic or any of those things. People who are in time are usually pretty happy people, except if while they are in time, they are not having a good time. And then there is no beginning, no middle, and no end of their bad time. It just goes on forever. Okay, conversely, there are people who are referred to as through time. I am a very through time individual. To me, everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and I have a really good sense of what time it is, how long things take, and I live my entire life on a schedule, and it works for me because I have lots of clients and I do lots of activity. But there's also a flip side to being through time as well. People who are 100% through time, they're spending their entire life looking at the clock, keeping a schedule. They're not having any fun. They're not in the moment. So working on a good balance of being through time and in time, might be a positive thing to also pattern this time distortion of if you are in a situation in which you need to be through time, and you're going to go to work, and you're going to do what you're going to do, and then you're done. Okay, so when you get home and you're with your family, you're hanging out with your significant other human or your kids, that would be a really good time to be an in-time person, where you can shut the clock off, turn off the phone, be with the kids, be with the family, be with your spousal unit, and just be, and really, really enjoy yourself. And I think that would help a lot of people, particularly in their overall well-being. And you know that well-being has a lot to do with your overall health. All right, so we got a few more, and I've got about 12 whole minutes because I'm an in-time person. Let's talk about disassociation. Disassociation is one of those hypnotic phenomena in which that you have the experience of you're looking at you over there. You are not in your body. You are not looking through your eyes. The view that you have is from like the side. It could be from the top or the bottom or from any angle. But when you are disassociated, you are not in your body. It's like somebody else is operating your body. In cases of extreme dissociation, which is called a fugue state, you have some interesting stuff going on. Not only is there a complete detachment of the person from their experience of being in their body, but they also might have a complete detachment from their identity. There have been cases in which people have gone into a fugue state and they have completely either changed or obliterated or had amnesia for their former life. And they go to a different city and they start a new life up and they have a completely different life with no memory at all of their former life. It's really an interesting phenomenon. And I'm curious sometimes that you have kids, particularly teenagers that go into, they run away. And they have talked about that a lot of these runaways are just undiagnosed anxiety patients or undiagnosed anxiety people. And, in a small percentage of them, they are so stressed or they are in such a state of dissociation that they go into a fugue state. And what they must do is leave. And they kind of hurl themselves out into the void without no expectation of anything other than getting out of whatever situation that they're in. It's very interesting. And disassociation brings us to our next hypnotic phenomenon. There's actually two, the polar opposites of what. One of them is amnesia, and everybody's heard of amnesia. And you can actually induce amnesia. And the easiest way is to tell somebody to forget, hey, forget about it. Telling a little kid, you didn't see that. Don't think about that. Don't talk about that. No, that's not what you're feeling. And we do that to kids all the time. And think about the rock opera Tommy. Here's a little kid. He sees his dad getting murdered by his mother and her lover, and they do this whole, you didn't see anything. You won't tell anybody. You didn't see anything. You didn't hear anything. You won't tell anyone. This kid has no choice but to obey his parents, and he goes into a sense of hypnotic blindness and hypnotic deafness and hypnotic muteness. And it's real interesting that in the rock opera itself that he can play on a pinball machine, although he can't see it and he can't hear the bells and he doesn't know. But at the same time, his unconscious mind is still playing this pinball. It's a very interesting way of perceiving hypnotic phenomena. Okay, the next one is positive and negative hallucination. We talked about that at the beginning of the show, in which you're watching something and you hear something outside and you negatively hallucinate that there's somebody outside, or may not be true. There's also positive hallucination in which something actually is there and your brain is telling you that it isn't. One of the best examples, is you're walking around the house going, where in the hell are my car keys? And you're looking and looking and looking and looking and looking. And your wife will walk over to the table where you just looked, by the way, and pick up your keys and hold them. Or you'll be holding them in your hand, and your body will hallucinate that you don't feel your hand close around your keys. This happens all of the time. Now, we did touch basically on age regression when we were talking about like pouting and stuff like that, but age regressed states are, to me, one of the most fascinating things that we do, and I do a lot of work on age regression and age progression because so many of our strategies were learned when we were children and we had very few resources. So if you think about, a fully adult, educated human being that has a job and a wife and a car and a motorcycle and a mortgage, why in the world is he pouting? Okay, and the reason is that because in the emotional state or in the strategy that he's currently using, it's a very age regressed part of him that has absolutely no resources. Holding his breath, stamping his feet, and not talking are his only survival mechanisms. And one of the solutions is to grow that part up and give that part access to the adult resources. Now, conversely, there's something really interesting called age progression. You may have heard people like getting scared or having some type of a trauma in which their hair turns white overnight, or somebody became an old man or an old woman overnight. That is a description of extreme physical age progression. And age progression, think about a little kid, or a teenager or something like that, and one of the parents dies, or one of the parents leaves, and then the remaining parent, in some way, shape, or form, seems to be unable to cope, or perhaps they're an alcoholic or a drug addict, or maybe they do something really stupid, like they tell their child, well, you have to be the man around the house, or you have to be the woman of the house. Well, that forces that child into an age progression in which that they are saddled with responsibility that is far beyond their age. And they will create this strategy that will allow them to do that. But a couple of things that have happened. Number one, you've completely robbed them of their childhood, which sucks. The other thing is that based on the age that they are, what they are doing is a simulation of what they see adults doing. So even though they may be displaying adult behaviors, it's still an age-regressed strategy in which that part of them needs to be de-aged back to their primary age and then age progressed in a more holographic and a more ecological way. It's kind of a two-step process. To me, it's like really fun and interesting to do. Okay, well, we've just got a couple of minutes left and a couple of things to talk about. And this one, it seems real interesting to me as well, is catalepsy. Catalepsy, you may have seen, there was a movie out there about a physician who had cataleptic patients, and these people were like frozen. They looked like unanimated, puppets. They were just like in their space, and they didn't move, and they can't move. And you can pick their arm up, and their arm would just stay there until you put their arm back down. And these people literally are frozen. in their body. And catalepsy is such a naturally occurring phenomenon. You see it all the time. Drive down the freeway and you see people with this like magic coffee arm, and their arm is levitating. Or if you go to a restaurant, I love to watch people, and you'll see somebody reading the newspaper, and they'll pick up their coffee cup and or a glass of water, and they'll start to drink it. But then something on the newspaper or on their iPod or whatever it is catches their attention, and their arm is literally frozen in space. Okay, well, if you think about this physiologically, have you ever heard of frozen shoulder? It is a condition in which the person's arm literally won't work. And chiropractors can tell you about it, and they'll give you drugs, and they'll give you surgery, and they'll do this other stuff, and sometimes they fix it. Sometimes they do not. But there is no reason for frozen shoulder. There is no reason or cause or cure for asthma. Isn't that interesting? Asthma is more closely related to an anxiety response than it is an actual physical disease. And we have all kinds of physiological things that occur in our lives that we've created diseases or we've created illnesses for them, but they don't have a cause. And I find that really, really interesting. How about somebody developing a heart condition? Okay. And you put them into trance, and you find out that when they were in in ninth grade, they had a girlfriend, and their girlfriend left them, because the senior wanted, and this girl wanted to go to the prom, so she broke up with her freshman boyfriend to go to the prom with her now senior boyfriend. It happens all the time. But can human beings manifest physical illness and physical dis-ease as a result of a post-hypnotic suggestion, like a broken heart? You bet they can. And what I want to do is I would like to continue this show, and I can't do it today, but I'd like to continue this show and talk a little bit more in depth about hypnotic phenomena, but specifically, I want to talk about post-hypnotic suggestion, and I want to talk about what I refer to as a thought virus, okay? And you're going to have to wait until Monday for this. But I want you to think about the things that are in your life. If you think of everything that is going on in your life, if you have diabetes, okay, ask yourself the question, what are you bitter about? What in your life that used to be sweet, that the sweetness has gone out? Is it in your relationship? Do you hate your job? Did somebody piss you off and you haven't been able to let go of it? There's a whole bunch of illnesses and diseases that we refer to as commonly occurring that might be something as simple as you going into trance, digging down to the root cause or the original cause, and then just letting it go. So I want to thank everybody for being on the show. I got a ton of guests on the flash chat, although nobody's asking me any questions. That's okay. If you ever need to get a hold of me, please call my Google phone number, 214-702-3774, and leave me a message. Send me an email to drm@drmichaelharris.com. And I really appreciate you listening. Thanks for being on the show.
Welcome to the Healthy Mind and Body Radio Show with Michael Harris, PhD. We are committed to helping you create a type of life that is worth living. Our guests are authors, speakers, healers, and industry experts who are living their dream. Join us each Monday and Thursday at 1 p.m. and start living your dream.